All right, welcome everybody to Rugby Nation. Got Todd Clever here, the legend, aka Captain America. Just so excited to have you here and interviewing you. Um, anyways, last time I saw you, it was at your house. You let me stay with you at your house and showed me around, and you have a beautiful place, and your town is beautiful. How have you been faring here during the quarantine?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of unfair, for it just because of some people kind of suffering and myself having kind of I live off the land, have a couple chickens, have get their eggs every day, have a garden, get all my herbs and vegetables, have a pool in the backyard and it's just down the street from the beach. So it's been a pretty good place to be in lockdown. So I'm definitely, grateful and thankful for that. Just spending a lot of time with the daughter, girlfriend, close family. But other than that, haven't really spent too much time outdoors or in anything. So it's been pretty good. And again, you're always welcome to come back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Next time I want to try out a longboard and see if I can catch a wave.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, it's when we had a chance to chat a little bit, I was really impressed by your story of how you found rugby, what inspired you to continue, and the goals that you set and the goals that you reached. Um, I think it would be, I think the Rugby Nation audience would love to hear that story again. Would you mind sharing it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go through the bullet points and feel free to interrupt me. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I started playing rugby in San Jose, California, and just kind of followed my brother's footsteps. As a young boy, followed him into soccer, into swim, up tree houses, up in the hills, things like that. And he started playing rugby, and I wasn't really interested in it too much. But he went on a tour and he came back with pictures and stories of sort of his travels. And I was like, man, that sounds like a fun time. And the next year, when I was getting into high school, the team was going to go on tour as well, and the team was going to go to England for 2 weeks and play 2 games. The rest of the time is just going to check out castles, stay in hostels, stay in the other teams' houses and everything else. And it just kind of like, oh, it sounded great and wanted to be part of it. And my parents actually, it's all credit to them, is they know we'll sponsor your trip, we'll pay for your trip, but you have to commit to being a good teammate. So you have to go to every practice and you have to go to every game and be a good teammate. So I said that's a pretty good fair trade. So that was a deal we made, and I fell in love with the sport. Off the field more so than I did on the field, just with experience of global and my whole, being in what I wanted to do was travel the world and see different cultures and experience different food and meet people. And, that was my avenue. So, I took to that road and ultimately found out, the better I got at rugby, the more places I got to travel, the more teams I got to join. So, I played rugby for a couple of years before I even knew that it was a professional sport. I thought it was a club sport all around the world. Pay to play and, kind of, stay in hostels or stay with the other teammates. I just didn't know. And after a couple seasons, got introduced to high performance rugby. And that's when my, my goal setting started. I made my short-term goals, my long-term goals, and ultimately, felt good taking those boxes off and knew that, with a lot of hard work and extra work from just the team stuff, individual stuff, I was able to make it.
It's awesome. What for anybody watching and anybody who's interested in taking it to that level and being professional. I mean, you've played pro for 15s, sevens, several teams around the world. You've played in 3 World Cups. Um, what do you think are the most important qualities or important traits that somebody needs to build or create within themselves, or something that it's a must to be able to reach those kind of goals?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to have that dream, and that belief, and then I would say, putting pen on paper, writing down those goals, and because it's talk is pretty cheap. I've had a lot of teammates, or I've, with business and everything else. People can talk your ear off saying what they're doing, but what are they actually doing? So my thing would be belief, setting goals, and really going after them, finding their avenues. I was, when I was coming up, from age grade USA under-19s to college All-Americans to overseas contracts to the Eagles into World Cups, there wasn't a pathway for anybody to make it. So what I did, I watched rugby on TV, and I just kind of molded the player I wanted to be, and I was like, okay, I want to be that number 6, and I want to be that number 8. So I kind of just molded their styles into my style. And that's, the tools that the, kids have these days with YouTube and sort of highlight videos and coding and everything else. You got to use those for your advantage, to really, get that extra step, because, I wanted to be physical. I wanted to be great at the breakdown. I also wanted to be a running rugby player. So it's like, okay, how can I be a wing, flanker, and this 8-man sort of, all matched, and it really helped me playing 7s and 15s. I really used the 7s game into my 15s of wide open vision, skills, running lines, and explosiveness. And then when I was playing 7s, I used my 15s, physicality, breakdown work, being a strength in the forward pack. There's 3 of us, but in the forwards. So ultimately, I was never a complete player. I was always trying to, sharpen my tools, if that was going to be off field in the video, like in front of a computer or TV doing it, or if I was, out on the field doing extra work, because, I understand that, there's programs given from, coaches and off seasons and everything else. That's when I worked the hardest, was the off seasons, when I wasn't with the team. I was able to sort of really focus on my body, and I have a great, a personal trainer that for my off seasons helped me, succeed and take those next steps forward. And I mean, him as well, Ryan Gallup, and he's come up with a Rugby X program that is brilliant for young boys and girls to take that next initiative to go forward.
That's awesome. Tell me, so you've played 15s and 7s professionally. Let's talk a little bit about some of the players that inspired you on and off the field, and maybe their work ethic. And then we'll jump into strength and conditioning and how important that is for somebody who has those aspirations and who wants to do the better on the pitch. But so first of all, like, players that really inspire you. You've played all around the world. I saw you play against the All Blacks in Chicago. It was it really has been inspirational to see you literally just go toe to toe, and willing to tackle anybody, willing to go up against anybody, any of the greats, and just go for it. It really was inspiring to me as I saw the games live, how you're willing to just get in there and punish people. But who are some of the greats that you really admire for on and off the pitch, of who they are, or their athletic abilities?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at sort of, like I said before, when I was setting goals, and when I was looking at rugby on TV, the only rugby that I got at my house growing up was Tri Nations, and Super Rugby.
Yep.
So having my team, so I was like, okay, I grew up remember watching Jonah Lamu running over people, and I'm like, oh my goodness, watching Jerry Collins, crash through, this gain lines and explosive tackles, and just just that was sort of, those characters, that I built up of like, how can I, be something like that? And you can just see sort of, the commitment that they had, not just for themselves and for them being brave in that one instinct, but the commitment that they have for that jersey. And that was what I kind of saw just from the TV, knowing, and then getting into high performance. Then I started, realizing that, rugby, you can't just be 100%. You got to have a good balance. And if it's, I've had a lot of teammates that were a lot talented, stronger, or whatever else, but they didn't have a good balance on life. So I always talk to people, it's good to play multiple sports. It's good to have hobbies, if it's going to be reading, or if it's going to be writing or painting or gardening or whatever the case would be. It's really good that way. So whenever, I remember playing against one of my, not childhood, but my, rugby guys that I looked up to, you can say heroes of it, George Smith, from the Wallabies, watched his game, and I wanted to, emulate his breakdown work. We have two different body style types, but his breakdown work, how can I fit that into that, along with sort of a Jerry Collins onto a Jonah Lamu, sort of, as a one character, as a one player. So, playing against him for Super Rugby, and that was my first start, was against the Brumbies when I played with the Lions. And I remember against the, on a scrum, just like first thing, it's like, you see, your childhood icon is like, okay, this is, kind of making it. I've already played a handful of games for Super Rugby, but playing against someone that you just idolize and everything else. And, it was just really cool, to have that sort of experience, and not just to, have that and learn from him on the field and seeing shortcuts, because, always learning. And, I could say this story so much because we won that game, and I actually had a better game than him, because, I put myself under so much pressure, and I was looking forward to it too much, and the media and everything else was really maxed out there. But after the game, couldn't have met a nicer guy. And we, became friends. And the next year, whenever we traveled to him, because I was in Johannesburg, and the next year we traveled to capital of Australia, Canberra, played against them there. We caught up after the game there, in between. Then we were teammates in Japan. Then we were in England at the same time. So you build these friendships, and it's amazing. He's still one of my really, really good friends. And, I've his book on my coffee table, one of those sort of things, and, text all the time. So it's about being a really good person. And that's kind of who I've always looked up to, is someone that works really hard, someone that's you can share a meal with or drink with, someone that has the same sort of things. And I mean, maybe it's just flankers on, the back row that has a bit of screw loose that we get along better. But yeah, I mean, that's just to mention, one of the dozens of, highlights of my sort of career of playing against a high performance, and who I admire and why I admire him, just because, I mean, he can do anything on the rugby field.
That is awesome. And that's a great story. I hadn't heard. That's awesome. So what about strength and conditioning? What do you think? So there's skills training, but there's strength and conditioning. What do you think strength and conditioning, how do you approach it? I mean, to play sevens professionally, you've got to be like a madman in conditioning, right? And to play in 15s as well. I mean, 80 minutes of hard pounding. I describe it to people as 80 minutes of a full brawl. And it is such a hard sport, one of the toughest sports on planet Earth, that you really need to make sure that your strength and conditioning is dialed in, or else you won't be able to make it through an entire match, or through a sevens tournament. What's been your philosophy, and who are the people that have helped you along the way, and how has that helped you?
Yeah, and like anything, it's sort of coming on the grips of professionalism of rugby. What kind of coaches you have, and strength and conditioning, and there's ones that are qualified, but they just do a cut and paste. sort of, hey, here's your program. There's cut and paste. I have the same thing as any other forward, and then there's your back workout and a forwards workout. And once you get more professional, once you invest in yourself, and that's the biggest thing, you got to invest in yourself. You can't just do one of these cookie cutter sort of, programs, because, it's, ultimately I couldn't do anything overhead or any like shoulder press the last 5-6 years of my, professional career, because my shoulder was, pretty wrecked from it. And once I was able to get the rehab, the prehab, then I was able to do a little bit more. But, it's good to get someone that you trust, and get ready for the extra work, and I was lucky enough to have good coaches. And like I said before, pre-seasons and off seasons is where you can make a lot of gains. And to, if you have a long rugby season, you got to do all the work beforehand, and that's where you put on the extra pounds of muscle or of anything else. So, that's kind of what I've been, able to, sort of do and contribute, of doing the extra work. If I have a week off, like, I'm not going to just, sit on my butt, and watch TV. I'm going to be like, okay, I have a week off. I know I'm not going to play in the game. So instead of just doing one leg day, I'll be able to do 2 leg days and then do everything else, where I wouldn't have been able to do that extra leg day because I would have had a game. So, to go back to sort of off seasons, when I was living overseas, I lived overseas for 13 years, between New Zealand, South Africa, Japan, and England. Every off season, I'd, be coming back to San Diego. And Ryan Gallup, who I mentioned earlier, had me on this program, and my off seasons were just as hard as pre-seasons and everything else. I was able to mix it up. It was shorter, where I can, enjoy the lifestyle. But man, I was, he was getting me in the gym, and he held me accountable, and that was the biggest thing, is being held accountable and having somebody, know your body. How can you get better? How can you get these gains during these off times?
That's awesome. And you and him have helped to create the Rugby X program that's part of the Rugby Nation program. And we're about to relaunch it with all your content. And it's pretty amazing. There's off season, in season, post season, all kinds of workouts that really help athletes to get to that level. What about, let me ask you about something that a lot of people don't talk about, is the mental state of individuals in going into a game or in going into strength and conditioning. Is there anything that you've learned over time to be able to get your mind right, to get you to be able to perform to the level that you need to perform at?
Yeah, I mean, just like anything, the mental side of things is massive. And, it goes back to, like, I mentioned before, of setting goals, of, watching TV. If it was going to be Tri-Nations or Super Rugby, it's like, hey, I want to play, in this competition. That was my long-term goal. And then, I had a checklist of what I was doing, before that game. Like, what were my goals? How many tackles did I want to make? How many, breaks? How many things, like, and I held myself accountable before running out of a tunnel or at a stadium. I had my piece of paper. Okay, this is what I want to do. When I got to the high level of Super Rugby, they kind of my teammates looked at me weird. They're just like, what is this guy doing in his journey? Like, reading, people are listening to music, people are getting pumped up, and I'm just pretty calm and just kind of, okay, this is what I need to do. And at the end of everything I do is like, why am I playing the game? And I'm Todd Clever, and I'm representing not just myself, this team. And, for me, I felt as though I was representing, American rugby, when I was playing in these competitions, because I was, the only one that I was, playing in the Southern Hemisphere at the highest level. And I always signed it. So I knew I was accountable. I knew I had my short-term goals. I knew I wanted to do this. So, after the games, and, I felt good about it if I had left everything on the field. So the mental side of things, with anything, but what I know is rugby is massive, because if you're confident, if you have that belief, if you've done that hard work from, you know, off season to preseason to, you know, no shortcuts on the field, and you have that belief with your team and that commitment, man, you're setting yourself up for success.
That's a great tip, actually. And I really like that you write down your goals, and even right before you hit the pitch, you're even reading the goals that you have for that specific game. Um, you're and and you're a family man, and you have a daughter, and you spend a lot of time with her, and I admire that. I admire that you're involved, and that you do the best that you can. That way, I'm a single dad too, and you know, right now in the world, there's a lot of commotion. There's a lot of people losing heart and stuff. I know you're a very peaceful guy. On the pitch, you'll destroy anybody across from you. But off the pitch, you're seriously one of the nicest people that I know. And do you have a message for peace? Just a message for anybody who's you know, there's a lot of people are looking for some hope. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is definitely a challenging time, you know, with what's going on in the world. And you know, like I mentioned before, you kind of, I'm stuck in sort of this isolation, kind of stuck to myself, and, you know, kind of kept quiet. And my whole thing is, you know, be a good person. Like, you know, my parents, you know, raised me, and to you know, treat everybody how you want to be treated. It's as simple as that. And, you know, it doesn't matter about anything, you know, and as long as you're a good person and come from good perspective, you know, it shouldn't matter. And it's a shame that we're still going through some of the things that we are in today's world, in today's society. And it's disgusting to see, and it breaks my heart for mankind. You know, I have a lot of passions, and one of them was in traveling the world, living different cultures, experiencing different lifestyles. And that comes with all shades of color of skin. But also, you know, of seeing and treating the world, of treating Mother Earth as we only have one. So like everything kind of goes of being a good person, respecting everybody, everything that's living. And, you know, we definitely need a lot more of that. And how I can, you know, sort of help or persuade of anything, you know, I'm in for it. But being positive is massive, and just being a good person.
I agree 100%. Todd, it's been a pleasure. Seriously, uh, I appreciate you being so kind, letting me stay at your place and hang out, and also I appreciate you as a person, and I admire many things about you, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me and to talk to Rugby Nation, and I hope this inspires some people to be able to reach the goals and the levels that you reached, and to get to know you a little bit better, get to know you as a person.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and we'll catch up again soon.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, see ya.